What's going on, my friends? Hope you're doing well. Got a little quick video on how I grease and oil my reels after I clean them. I get asked a lot of questions about that on Instagram, DM the messages. This is just a little quick little maintenance tip on reels. I hope you enjoy it. Let's dive into it. Okay, let's say you've got your reel broke down. You've already took your side plate off. You've got your brake pin removed. Of course, you've got your brake cap removed. Get your brake pin out. All you need is make sure you've got a good assortment of Q-tips. These kind right here that's got the nice pointy ends are perfect. All you're going to do is, when you do first get it broke down, just make sure you take off excess oil right there at where the worm gear comes through the plate there. You can see the clips that's holding the worm gear in. Take your Q-tip, clean inside where your brake pin comes through on both ends. And nowadays a lot of reels, they'll have bearings on both ends. Just make sure you clean off excess. You want to make sure that on your worm gear itself that you can continuously wipe this until you get all the old oil and grease off. Just keep turning your handle, let your gear turn, keep cleaning it. I'll do this like once a month, especially during the season when I'm on the water, maybe 2-3 times a week. I'm a little OCD about it, and I believe that's a good thing. The less you worry about on the water, the more you can concentrate on catching fish. That's how I look at it. So that goes with everything: your boat, your lures, your baits, your reels, your rods, everything. If you're meticulous about everything, that's one less thing that you have to worry about, and you can concentrate on catching fish. That really can't be stated enough about having your mind free of worry and free of whatever's going on, just concentrating on catching fish and enjoying your time on the water. But anywho, make sure you clean your worm gear real good, and if you have to, I've got a nice clean sink over there. I'll go over and I'll rinse everything in cool water, and then I'll let it sit overnight if I have time, and just let it dry. Of course, I'll dry the excess off, and then I'll let it sit. For example, I've got, as you can see, I've got this one here. This is an old PE Zillion. I'm taking apart and cleaning a little bit more thoroughly. I've let it sit after cleaning it. But anyway, one of the best things that you can get is in them your little beard and mustache kits that you see everywhere. Get you one of these little mustache brushes, or the brush to clean the electric razor. They're everywhere in the little grooming kits for men. This right here, in a good quality grease. I use SLP Works. It's 104 Daiwa SLP Works 104 grease. I've been using it for years, and it's absolutely phenomenal. Never had any issues with it. I'll also use ZPI. They've got a good grease and good oil as well, which I'll show you here in a minute. But this Friction Zero is very good grease as well. But anyway, you just take your little brush, get your little dab on there, Main thing is, and I used to do this when I first started doing this, is you want to, make sure you're not putting in an excess. You don't want to put too much. Really, in this case, in doing this, too much is a bad thing. So you just make sure you take your little brush, dab your grease on there, like so. You can see that. Turn your handle so we expose another part of the worm gear. A little bit of grease. When I say a little bit, I mean I'm talking, just a touch. And if you get too much, you can always spread it out. Have your little paper towel or something you can wipe the excess off. Anyway, go ahead and apply it to all over your worm gear. You can turn your handle a few times and inspect it under the light. Make sure you've got it covered well. Again, you don't need to do much. And then on the clip for the worm gear, right there on the side of the reel, when you take off your side plate on these dowel reels, you'll see a little clip right there in the washer that holds in the worm gear. I always take my brush and I'll dab just a little bit on the end of that. As you can see. Then I'll make sure I'll turn the handle. Make sure that's spinning on there real well. Again, you don't want too much, just a little. Okay. And if you're satisfied with that, if you feel like you've got a good coating, then you can move on. You can always, wipe off excess. Make sure that you do, because when you're using this grease, of course, it's going to attract and hold dirt more so than oil. So you want to make sure that there's not any excess, any extra that's going to allow any kind of intrusion of dirt into your reel. So next, I'll take my brake pin. Okay, I'll take a little coat, just dab it on the brake pin, and then I'll put it all over the stem of the brake pin, and a very nice light coat. Definitely don't want to go too heavy. Now, before you put your brake pin back in, and you've got your cap off, and you've got this all nice and clean, you can see the bearing. It doesn't hurt to put a little drop of oil on that bearing right there. Any high quality oil will work. Hedgehog oil, alchemy oil is very good. ZPI, friction zero oil. I use this a lot. This is Real Guard from Daiwa. This is very good. They also have a spray grease you can use. And shake it up real good. And I mean, just put your one little drop in there. That's all you need. Turn your reel handle, and let that bearing spin. And now you're ready to take your greased brake pin and put it in. Go ahead and put it down in flush where it's sitting. Now you'll notice when you buy a lot of these, a lot of reels nowadays, they'll have a lot of oil, a lot of grease inside the brake pin, inside the brake cap. Excuse me. That's for for friction, of course. When your brake stem, when you've got your brake adjusted a little bit tighter, so it doesn't have too much friction. So I always take most of that out. Okay. You can see how dirty that is. And this is a relatively newer reel. It's an old model. It's an old Daiwa DR100. I know that you probably guys notice how it doesn't have a drag star on there. These didn't come with drags. This is a straight lockdown anti-reverse reel, so you can bust them and get them out of that cover. But what I'll do is, instead of dabbing a bunch of grease in here, I'll take my little trusty brush and I'll take make one little swipe on that pin. One or two little swipes. Make sure you got a nice little thin coat on there. You can go all over the whole top part. Now when you put your brake cap on, you've got you a nice little thin coat of grease to protect that brake pin. And you would think without a drag, this one would be the easiest to get on, and for some reason these DRs are difficult to get your cap back on. I never understood why. But anyway, you get your cap back on, okay? And you can make sure now on this other end, I've done this, you know, you don't have to. I'll sometimes take an oil like the Daiwa and I'll put one little drop in there. It's not a have to. If you put a drop or two on the other end, it does go down inside the reel and on the bearing, so you're good. You take your thumb bar and engage it. Take your little oil, and I mean just a little bit. It's actually better to use a dropper, you know, like this. That way you don't overdo it. You can use a dropper. This is another good for bearings. This another Friction Zero, but I've done this so much, I've got the knack of it. But you just want to put you a little bit. Take your clean Q-tip and take out the excess. And then you can engage it a couple times. Make sure it's nice and lubed up. Again, take out the excess. So you've got your worm gear greased. You've got your brake pin, nice little light coat of grease on it, and your brake cap is now protected with your brake pin, so you don't have to worry about friction on that and that getting too hot. Then on your side plate, it's simple, and I'm gonna go over this in another video, how to do a quick bearing exchange on your reels when you want to do it on your spool and your side plate. Same theory. You take your Q-tip and you can pull that bearing out, but if it's relatively new, you know, you can just clean out any excess, as well as where on these Daiwa reels, the centrifugal brake adjustment there, that screw comes through. Make sure that's nice and clean. You want to put your little drop of oil in that so that comes through excuse me, nice and smooth. This is where I'll use a dropper. You can use the Friction Zero. You go ahead and you make you a nice little quick drop on there. No more, you know, one or two drops is sufficient. You don't need to overdo it. And then on where your adjustment is for your centrifugal brake, you can take you up and put your little drop on it. Again, one little drop. I like to just push the pin up, put a little drop on it. Boom. Now you've got that ready to perform. You've taken your spools out, of course. Again, your Q-tips and a nice soft rag. And you can wipe it off. You can rinse it in cool water. Always just make sure there's no excess dirt in there. And be careful when you're doing this, because I have before. I'm sure you guys probably have too. A lot of people have. Drop your spool and you drop it on the floor and you don't have carpet like this. I'm in my bait room here. It's concrete floor. Yeah, it can ruin a spool real quick, so you want to be careful. So you wipe off the excess. I'll again take my oil and put me a drop or two in the bearing. Then I'll take my little trusty brush, Still has a nice little bit of oil, grease on it, and just put your little bit on top of that spool pin. That's all you need. You can go ahead and drop your spool back in. You've already oiled your side plate. You've got your worm gear. It's got a nice thin coat of grease on it. You've got your thumb bar done. You've got your bearings done on both your spool and your side plate. Now you can put one drop on this. I have taken and put in just a thin coat of grease. It's not necessary. You can just put one little drop of oil. You've already oiled your bearings. So some people like to put grease. Some people like to put oil. Some people do it by season. You know, they believe grease gets a little bit too thick in the colder months, so they like to use the oil instead of a grease. Nowadays, with the high quality of oil and grease that's on the market, and if you do this regularly, you don't have to worry about that. That's just my opinion. Nobody's right or wrong. But you can take one little drop. Boom. Put your side plate on. And the one thing that you can forget, and it goes with boats as well, with all equipment. Now this reel takes a special key, which I have over there. You have to use to tighten that up. But after you do that, make sure you're good. You know, engage your reel. Adjust everything. Spin it, see how it works. And make sure you take your screwdriver and go through your frame bolts, your frame, screws, your frame screws. Just make sure they're tight. You'd be surprised how many times I've done that and they were very loose. So, and you want a nice tight system here where nothing is loose. See, that one was a little loose, where there's no give. So your reel has no tolerance, especially when you have a big fish on. Same thing with your boat. You know, you go through and tighten up everything with the vibration of going down the road and on the water. It's good practice to tighten everything and check everything. Same thing with your reels. Same thing with your rods, which I'll go through in another video. But there you have it. It's simple, it's easy. You take your reel apart, you clean it. All you need is a nice little mustache grooming brush, some Q-tips, some good oil and grease, and you hit them points and your reel's going to perform for you perfectly. You won't have no issues on the water. And that's what you want to do. You just want to worry about catching big fish. Thanks, guys. I know it's a little quickie, but I wanted to put this out. I've had a lot of guys ask me about this and send me DMs and messages on Instagram asking me how I do this. This is just one part of many. I'm going to show you how I do bearing exchanges and how I do upkeep with my rods in future videos. So I hope you guys have a great rest of the day. Thanks for watching. God bless and tight lines.